Okay, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about propolis and all of the healing powers of propolis. And this is obviously not propolis alone, it is obviously beeswax. It's actually beeswax from a really special hive, a wild one, and this hive actually left the area during this time that we're going through in Australia with the bees, which I'll make a whole nother video on that. But I wish you guys could smell this because it is so rich and medicinally charged, just the smell of it like this in wax form. But yeah, each of these cells actually has a little bit of a taint of propolis in it. The lighter part is the newer comb, and then the darker part in here is older, more aged comb, but it's also kind of weathered, and yeah, it would have stores and scents and subjects of propolis within it. Propolis is the immune barrier of the hive. It's the protective layer, and its name actually means defense of the city. Ignore the crow in the background. So yeah, it's a defense of the city label because it is the complete barrier of the hive. And propolis is the substance in the hive that makes the hive as a whole more sterile than a hospital. The reason being is because it's naturally sterile, it's not a maintained sterility. So once propolis is coated around the hive, it's naturally maintained because of its everlasting effects. Propolis is also very heavily coated on the entrance, and if it's in a wild hive, it'll be around the entrance of a beehive. And this is where the bees, when they land on the entrance, they'll wipe their feet off, and so that when they enter inside, they're not taking any contaminants or things that they don't want within the hive that might affect the pheromone or the scent or the body of the inside of the hives. This is propolis that you can buy from the store, and there are a lot of different brands. And I'll go through a bit of how to source, what to look out for when you are buying propolis from the store from a bigger brand. I bought this bottle so I could break down the label for you. And then we also have, this is actually some native bee propolis. And it's kind of, I've tumbled it all into a bowl. And then I use this for a bit of a ritual because propolis smells amazing. And then you'll also actually find propolis in raw harvested honey when it's medicinally charged and when the apiculture standards are medicinal. When you're tending to the hive medicinally, you're going to get all of the 7 edible contaminants from the hive within honey, which is why you can classify it medicinal honey rather than just honey, or maybe raw honey even. It's just that one step further, and there's a lot of different steps within the beekeeping process that makes it that. And it's my hobby and it's my passion, and yeah, so what I'll do with this is I'll literally just burn the propolis, and I think you can hear that. It kind of sizzles a bit, and you can see the smoke. And then I'll just coat the ears. And this was a ritual that I learnt from this woman, Valeria, how we can use it as like a kind of a defense and cleansing. You can take it topically and you can take it internally as well. So what actually is propolis? Bees collect it outside of the hive, and it's resin from trees. It can also contain small amounts of pollen or the more dense nectaries that the bees collect. But majority of propolis is tree resin, and it's like the veins of the earth because tree resin is the blood of the tree, and it is sap that travels up, moisture and sap that travels up with the tree as it grows. And the poetic version is that it is the veins of the earth. It holds really highly charged reconstitutional acids within it. That's why it can also sometimes cause people to break out in what we quote unquote call allergies, because it's really heavily active and bioavailable from a really natural, vibrationally charged substance from the earth. These anti-words that we put to propolis are how we, with the human brain, unpack what propolis does. But the anti-words I like to stray away from as much as I possibly can, because when you're getting viral infections or funguses or anything like that, it is the body's natural response that is in place to support the healing and the return to homeostasis of the body. And I think that these anti-words kind of put in our minds that they are taking something away. But I like to think of it as it's adding microbial benefits to our body. That's what propolis is. It's actually highly actively microbial and bacterial. So we say antibacterial, but there is so much active bacteria in propolis, it is insane. So it's kind of, it doesn't make sense to me to use antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial for propolis, because it's in support to that plus but plus, and then it neutralizes. That's how I think of it. So yeah, it's got all of those properties in it, and it supports the neutralization when we have fungal and viral things. So yeah, I've honestly been, this one I've been taking internally in the throat, a few drops, and leaving it in the throat, not swallowing. It just seeps and you can just feel it washing through the nasal and the throat. And then I'll use some saliva to swallow it back. I also sometimes have a little swig of honey in the morning, and then before I swallow the honey, I'll drop some propolis in after I've oil pulled, and then I'll leave it in my mouth for a bit and let it swoosh around. It's so good for our gums and the cleanliness of our tongue, and then it goes our throat and then just cleanses the whole system. It's nice in the morning first thing because you're in a fasted state, but it can be sometimes too much for people first thing in the morning. That's maybe a once a week thing. Like, I don't like to overdose anymore. I had a point where I did overdose on propolis. I don't think it's good to overdo things ever. However, honey, I feel like you can't fully overdose. But propolis, I feel like maybe you can. Yeah, so topically we can put it in warm drink, we can put it in elixirs. If we're having cold drink, one drop will be a beautiful resiny kind of flavor throughout whatever drink you're having. If you drink nice mocktails or anything like that, it's nice to add this in. I like making non-alcoholic elixir mocktail in the summer seasons. How is it extracted? A lot of the time from a beehive, it will be stopping the lid from coming up at the top of the hive, and the bees will almost instantly, if you crack a hive open, you'll first see propolis. So you'll crack it open, propolis will all be there, and you'll maybe scrape it off, and yeah, that's how you can collect it and distill it in brandy or some kind of liquor. Otherwise, you can also distill it in a bit of honey. You can freeze it, crush it up. There's a lot of different ways to process it, but it's incredibly sticky. The sticky part about it is why it's so nice to use fresh from a hive on any kind of wound. Straight bang on, and it will heal it really good. I recently had some surfing injuries, some cuts all up on my feet where they were quite deep, and it was so painful to put propolis straight in them, but that's what I did, and they were disinfected and supported and healed. I almost didn't even use a band-aid because I really needed to let it air out and dry up. So yeah, the propolis really aided in the drying up of my open wound. Even though it stung and it hurt, it healed it in no time. Propolis actually lasts a very, very long time. I'm not going to give you like explicit recipes and things for propolis and how to store it and everything, because it's kind of like, it really depends on how you're harvesting, and it's a big topic, so I won't go into it too much, but I will break down this label for you and just help you understand what it means to find and source really high propolis. So the first thing I'll say when you're looking at, well, anything that you buy in general, but especially with bee ingredients, you don't want the bee product to be mixed with anything other than a bee product. This one has propylene glycol, which is not, honestly, if it's brandy or some kind of alcohol, that's more ideal. When there is not a local source, it means that the bees are resting, and it also means that the keeper who has the bees or the propolis product, it means that they're respecting the fact that their bees are in a down season or they're just not producing. A lot of the time when your beekeeper's products run out, it's actually the best sign that those beekeepers are listening to their bees and the seasons, and usually it also means that your body doesn't need as much medicinal properties from the hive that are active. So one really great way is to collect propolis from the hive and store it in your home and only use it for when you actually need it, so that you're not over consuming and also not over treating whatever's going on in your body, and then your body can really utilize it as medicine rather than something that it relies on. So this is how we support the body in our densities, so we can range from a really dense side of things, and then we can have a very, very high sensitivity to things. And the goal is always to be in somewhere in the middle between both extremely dense and incredibly sensitive. So we don't want to overdo anything when we're adding. Propolis is very strong. We don't want to overdo it. So a great way to know that you're always going to have propolis on hand is to not use it all the time. And then another great way to keep it fresh is to harvest it when it is abundant in the hive, and that's usually going to be the times when your body is going to need it the most. So our bodies are always listening and correlating with our environment depending on how we are interacting with our surrounding environment. So it's also a great travel essential. So if you're traveling a lot, then this is something that you're probably going to want to have on hand, and it's probably going to be harder to source locally if you are traveling. If that's the case, make sure it's a propolis with only one other ingredient. There's a few other things that they diffuse propolis in that is not ideal to take. So you really want to make sure it's either just the bee ingredient and maybe one other ingredient like brandy, and that's the same for everything. So the other thing I will say about this is that it says here made in New Zealand from imported and local ingredients. The fact that they are expressing that on the label, which I don't think you can see, it just means that they could be getting and sourcing this propolis from literally anywhere in the world. This is not the most ideal propolis to buy. The fact that they're sourcing it from literally anywhere in the world is not ideal, and I really try to stray away from buying from just anyone and just any product. When we are keeping bees in boxes, it doesn't explicitly mean that we are saving the bees. There are so many tending styles that don't actually honor the bees as they are in their natural raw and wild state. There's a lot of manipulations and a lot of additives that we impose on the bees when we're coming from a commercial sense, so that we can either produce more or utilize aspects of the bees for human needs. When this is the case, and then we are buying and sourcing our products from a beekeeper who we either don't know their practices, like this brand, I don't know their practices. I don't know also where in the world they could be sourcing the other ingredients, so it's really hard to know if I'm actually supporting a beekeeper who is either local or practicing more regenerative and medicinal styles of apiculture. And only in those cases are we actually creating strong relationships with bees, because we want to also come from the perspective and the opinion that the bees don't need saving. So when we go to ourselves like, oh, save the bees, we really don't need to save the bees. The bees are fine without us. The best thing that we need to focus on is healthy environments, not spraying chemicals on our land like glyphosate, really upholding some strong standards in our local area, how you're sourcing, who you're funding, what farms you're supporting with your money. All of these things really add up more than going out and thinking that bees need our help for their health. It's like, that's not true. The bees really don't need us, and we need them more than anything. And when we build healthy relationships, that is when we can start sharing the riches from the hive. When we're doing that in a reciprocal way, we can look for the long-term rewards rather than the short-term benefits. It's important to not put bees in boxes where there are plastic frames, and not put bees in boxes that have wax foundation or that imposes something of the human mind onto the beehive. So yeah, these are all things to consider, and this is why it's so important to source not just from anyone, but hopefully a local beekeeper if you can. Obviously sometimes this happens because it's a big responsibility to place bees in boxes, and if we're going to do that, we don't want to strip the bees of their health. And yeah, so that's why we source correctly. And yeah, this is also why we want to source really good honey, because naturally then we don't really have to source another propolis. We're actually getting all the benefits in the honey, and probably at a more digestible concentrate, because propolis is so strong and active the way it is in a bottle like this that it's actually quite rare for you to ever need to use this. The proper dose is the bee's dose, which is what they give us, and that is the propolis extracts that will be naturally constituted in the raw honey. This is the Earth and Ash skincare range. This is the natural raw healing oils that I use in the mornings and sometimes evenings. I sometimes take days off of putting anything on my face, but sometimes I will use some drops of this oil and then some drops of propolis in my hand because I have really sensitive skin. Still going through some moments where I have experiences of gut inflammation, and been a whole journey with the restoration of my gut after the whole venom therapy program that I went on, and then also the purges that my body went through. So it's been a whole journey of building my body back up, and so sometimes I do need extra support, and that's when we can take to these things, and that's when I will definitely use a beautiful raw face oil from Earth and Ash, and then I'll put 1 drop of propolis into the oil, and then mix it on my hands together as like a potion on my hands, and then I'll really, really lightly just hold it on my face, and I'll even smell it because it's so strong smelling, so I'll smell it and really like allow the propolis to seep in, because our pores and our skin are so sensitive, and they are really responding to everything that we feed it. There are some of the ways that I use propolis, and I honestly think like if you're struggling from some kind of chronic thing and you feel you need to take propolis, or a professional guidance tells you take propolis, it's always best to try for ourselves. What is the dose that I need? Okay, I'm gonna have what they suggested me have, but then how am I feeling after I have it? I'm feeling like I could have less. Literally just listen to yourself, because every single medical guidance leader or anything like that, they are always going to be supportive. The one thing that is the most supportive out of everything else on earth is listening to yourself and what your body needs and your own inner guidance. So yeah, that's always what I suggest. Please comment below if you use propolis and what are your experiences with it, and also let me know what else you want to see, because I'm more than happy and very available right now to make more videos like this and to share more bee knowledge. And I hope this is valuable. If it is, please like, and then also subscribe so you don't miss out on anything that I get up to. Coming up, I'm doing a few short courses, one in Bellingen on the 2nd of May, a lot of like activities, so I'm going to do little vlogs and get to know me's and things like that, because this is so fun and I want you guys to be a part of it. Okay, bye for now. I'll see you next time.